Hello and welcome to the Standoff Show. Don't worry, Brad and Richie will be here in a second. Look, there's only one game, so I thought it'd be quick. But no. Brad has already said, oh yeah, that's in the first section. You've got ages. So expect a nice big one from the boys because, hey, that's the way grand finals are, isn't it, Brad?
It is indeed. We may as well go for as long as we want because, you don't pay us by the hour anyway, so it's fine. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on episode 34, season 4 of the Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're here live on Wednesdays on Facebook throughout the season. Season's over now. Speaking of that, Richie, season's officially over after perhaps one of the best grand final matches we've seen in some time. How are you and how was your weekend?
I'm doing well, thanks, Brad. It certainly was. It was an amazing game. We will cover it off when we review it, obviously. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that. Now, season's done, but we have some internationals to look forward to. So we're not quite out of the woods yet. Still a bit of league left.
Still got a bit of league to talk about on Wednesdays for a while yet. We haven't even discussed when season 4 ends, which is kind of how we do things around here. We've got some internationals, so I'm sure we'll go for a little bit longer. But yeah, while we're here live on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m, you can also catch us at your convenience on iHeartRadio, Spotify, all those places. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to cover everything you need to know in the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week, a review of the grand finals of the NRL and the NRLW, and our final update on our tips. We'll then stop and answer some questions from you guys, as well as ones we've got prepared for each other. We'll then, this is mainly for Jacko if he's in yet, we'll do our quick recap of the Rugby Super League, and then we'll end the night with a preview of our prediction awards night. So there's not that much to talk about in Super League, Jacko, so just hold on for a little bit so we can discuss what we're doing next week. But yeah, remember to send us comments and questions throughout the show, and we may as well jump straight into our top stories, Richie.
Let's do that.
And I told Paul it's going to be a bit of a doozy with the news because we had the Dally M's last week after our show. We did our predictions and we didn't do that well. You were very clucky though, sending me a text when David Fafita got one of the second rowers in the team of the year. Since you picked that. But yeah, I'll go through the NRL Dally M award winners and then we'll just discuss it. So player Dally M medalist, so player of the year went to Kalen Ponga from the Knights, pipping Sean Johnson by 1 point. Coach of the year went to Andrew Webster from the Warriors. Captain of the year went to Adam Reynolds from the Broncos. Rookie of the year went to Sanua Taruva from the Panthers. Proven Summons Medal, which is the Spirit of the Game Award, went to Nico Hines. VB Hard-Earned Player of the Year went to Adam Fanua-Blake from the Warriors. Top point scorer and top try scorer went to Jermaine Osako from the Dolphins. Try of the Year went to Matt Fagao from the Dragons. Tackle of the Year went to Hamoli Olakuatu from the Seagulls. And then the Ken Stephen Medal, which is the medal for like your contributions to off the field, charity work and whatnot, went to Latrell Mitchell from the Rabbitohs. What's your take? I know the big one everyone was discussing was the actual Dally M medalist. But what is your take on all those awards? Any that you had your head scratched about, or?
Yeah, obviously the player of the year, Kalen Ponga, getting that. I understand Sean Johnson has other people, Adam Fanua-Blake, Chance, players like that, taking points off him in certain games. It just shows the flaw in the system where a guy who can just get hot for 10 weeks win player of the year. To me, he's not player of the year. He's player of maybe a third of the year. And he had, I don't understand how a lot of those games he's picking up 6 points when his whole back five was killing it, really. Dom Young, Maju, Gagai. But I'll stop there at risk of coming across very salty, which I am. But I'm over it. The only other one, really, Matt Fearnguy try for the Dragons. I don't know if I would have picked that for try of the year.
No, yeah, those are the two that I was looking at. Going, they're the ones I could argue. The captain of the year, I got confused. I picked Tohu because I was under the assumption that the captain of the year had to be in the team of the year. That's why I didn't pick Reynolds, because it was like, well, Reynolds isn't going to get in team of the year above SJ. But captain of the year didn't even make team of the year. But that's then, if I recall, Roger got captain during the COVID times and didn't make team of the year. So I should have, that's more on me. But yeah, the Ponga thing, I was super pissed about it. Watching it late here on a Wednesday night at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Expecting to see Sean win and then seeing him get pipped by one. But it's a flawed system, but it's always been a flawed system. You know, we had the same argument last year when Nicker Hines won it. We even had noise when Roger won it in 2018, saying, of course he won it. He was the only good player in that Warriors team. You know, so it's the way it goes, unfortunately. If, you know, but I look at it more as a positive for the Warriors. They had two players in the top 10 at the end of the Dally M's. So, yeah, very disappointing. It's probably the closest SJ is going to get to being the Dally M medalist. I think even if he plays as well as he did this year, next year, you've got guys like Adam, Roger is going to be there. There's going to be a lot of guys that can take points off him.
Reece Walsh, if he can behave himself, because you got to think if he didn't get a suspension during the year, I have a feeling he would have taken it out.
But see, they were still giving points to Drinkwater, who had been disallowed as well. And then, so I don't know if they stopped giving Reece points because they knew it didn't matter or not, and they just forgot that Drinkwater was in the same trouble. I don't know.
Payne Haas got deducted points too for a charge I think he got. So you never really know what's going to unfold in a season.
But yeah, it's the joys of the Dally M's. You never come out with everyone agreeing. But I was very happy that we got Adam Fanor-Blake got the hard-earned, and Webster, of course, with coach.
Yep. Very happy for Webster.
So very happy for that. And then we'll do the teams of the year together, but we'll go into the NRLW. I don't really have too much to say on it because the only one I was really following won. So player of the year went to Tamika Upton. So the Knights, both their fullbacks, got Dally M's this year. Coach of the year went to Karen Murphy from the Titans. Captain of the year went to Simi Tafa from the Raiders. Rookie of the year went to Anessa Biddle from the Sharks. The Proven Subbins medal for Spirit of the Game went to Lavina Gould from the Broncos. Try of the year went to Jesse Southwell from the Knights. Tackle of the year went to Jakaya Whitfield from the Tigers. And then the Veronica White medal went to Lula Tillett from the Cowboys. So I was kind of on the Upton bandwagon from the start. I'm a big fan of her. So I was happy to see her get it. And Coach of the Year going from the Titans, who went from wooden spoon to grand final.
What a speech she had too.
And it was a great speech. And yeah, everyone else I didn't really have any issues with.
So, really, Brad, because who were the props in the in the team?
We haven't got to that part yet. I'm talking about the Dally M award winners, not team of the year.
One thing I find funny, Samaima Taufa picking up captain of the year would have been the same. Well, no, the same thing would have been for Isaiah Yeo. He was nominated, but they're co-captains. I mean, why do they get nominated and not the other part of the co-captaincy?
Well, that's true. That's an interesting point.
It's weird.
I don't know. I thought that one was going to go to Georgia Hale for the same thing, like what the Titans have done, and she's been one of their better players all year. So I thought, but Taufa has been fantastic in her first year with the Raiders as well.
Yeah.
So it's hard, but yeah, that goes into our teams of the year. So NRL side, we had Kalen Ponga at fullback, Richie. Then we had Dallin Watene-Zelezniak and Jermaine Osako on the wings. Stephen Crichton and Herbie Farnworth in the centres. Ezra Mam and Sean Johnson in the halves. Payne Haas, Harry Grant, Adam Fanor-Blake in the front row. Liam Martin and David Fafita somehow got there in the second row. And then Pat Carrigan at lock. It's not that different to what we had picked. I know I picked a different second rower and a different hooker. But
otherwise,
I'm
pretty spot on, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I think so. But yeah, it's nothing too much to complain about there. I'm still surprised Fafita got there, but yeah, it's not bad. I'm happy that we got 3 Warriors in there. Tied at the top with the Broncos for most representations. Oh wait, second, sorry, because Broncos got 4. Panthers only got 1. Storm only got 1. So it's good to see we got a couple in there. It's good from a Warriors point of view. Anything else you want to add before we go into the disaster that is the NRLW Team of the Year, missing quite possibly the best player?
No, you go on, mate. Go on to that.
All right, so the NRLW Team of the Year, we've got Tamika Upton at fullback, Jakaya Whitfield and Julia Robertson on the wings, Isabel Kelly and Millie Hufunga in the centres, Taryn Aiken and Ali Brigginshaw in the halves, Shannon Mado, Destiny Brill and Sarah Tongatuki in the front row.
Oh,
strange! It breaks my heart.
Brad. Breaks your heart.
Yasmin Clydesdale and Olivia Kernick in the second row, and then Simi Taufa at lock. So obviously, elephant in the room. I don't understand where Millie Boyle is. I know she missed a few games this year, which probably didn't help her out, but I couldn't even tell you who those 2 props are, to be honest. And I'm the prop on the show. It hurts.
Coming across pretty salty there, Brad.
Very salty. That hurts almost as much as SJ not getting the Dally M. But it's not a bad team. I thought Maddie Bartlett might have got on the wing. And I thought Jessie Southwell, had a better year than Ali Brigginshaw.
Oh yeah, Ali Brigginshaw wasn't far off the top middle as well. I think.
Yeah.
She's obviously been scoring well during the year in the Dally M votes for the Broncos.
But in that defence, Jessie's playing in the team with Upton, so she's not getting those
points. Yeah, 100%. It's that system again.
But I'm pretty sure Jessie's going to be in there more often than not due to her age. And Ali's more at the back end. But anything else you want to add on there?
No. Move on.
All right, so we'll actually get into the actual news now. So despite losing the Dally M medal, Sean Johnson has been awarded the RLPA Players Champion Award. That's the award voted as the best player this year by the actual current players. So I think the rules for when they did the Team of the Year a few weeks back, the rule is you can vote for anyone that's not in your own team.
Yeah.
So to stop you being biased to your own team. But it's great to see that he's been recognised by everyone other than the Dally M's. So,
that's a good one. It's actually, I was pretty happy to see he picked that up. I was feeling pretty sorry for SJ. You could see at Dally M Awards night, he's a bit gutted. He looked a bit gutted to me when the final result came in. So for him to pick that up, it was a nice little consolation for him.
Yeah, but as Jacko said, Players Award really means more than Dally M's. Yeah, the Dally M, because it's a flawed system, the RLPA system isn't flawed. You vote for who you think, and you're playing. So that would be the award you kind of want to get. It doesn't get the big, show. Well, if you can call it a big show, it looked a bit second rate, the old Dally M Awards night. But yeah. Fantastic that he got that. And Jareen Buller also got redeemed from losing Rookie of the Year by getting voted Rookie of the Year for the RLPA as well. So fantastic to see. But anything else you want to add on to those awards?
No, I mean, the Buller one, I can see why. I think was a pretty popular rookie this year, but I did agree with the bloke from the Panthers.
Taruva.
Sunia Taruva. I thought he was outstanding all year. But I mean, Buller had a good year as well. So
yeah, and Jacko,
too much.
Jacko, before we move on, Jacko said, I thought the Delium night was amateurish. Yeah, it looked really bad, and the sound was bad. There was times when the sound completely dropped out.
Yeah.
And I thought it was mine, and I actually jumped on Twitter to see like the live updates and saw a lot of people were complaining about the audio feed, so it wasn't just me.
I'll tell you what wasn't amateurish was Adam Fanua Blake's outfit. That was superb.
I think I said that as soon as we went off the show last week. I was talking to you and Paul, and they had little brief highlights from the green carpet, as they call it, and I just saw like a screenshot of him in his little black and gold outfit, and I was like, oh, he looks straight pimping.
Yeah.
But yeah, he always dresses to impress. But we'll continue on. SJ has also ruled himself out of the Kiwis for the upcoming Pacific Championship. Basically said at his age, he kind of wants to have a bit of rest and spend time with the family. And I think that's fair enough. Would have loved to have him out there. But I'm a biased Warriors fan. I also like the idea of not risking him to injury for the internationals. For sure. It's kind of weird how my international stance has changed a little bit now that the Warriors are actually playing finals footy. But yeah, what's your opinion on Sean not playing?
It's almost running on one leg towards the end of the season, So I think Sean definitely needs a good off season, and I feel like he knows that. Hence the decision he's made. So I support his stance there. I really hope he's back and firing on all cylinders come start of next year.
Yeah, and there's quite a few. We're going to talk about it a little bit later because they've announced some of the teams, but there's quite a few. Like the Kiwis team was announced, and then the Kiwis actually put a post under it on like 7 or 8 players that didn't get picked, and most of them are injury or chose to sit out or change to another country.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people with some niggles, which you expected coming off the back of a World Cup year. So we'll see. But we'll go into some Origin talk, which I know you love. Billy Slater's re-signed as Queensland coach for another 3 years. And we talked about it last week about Fittler taking his game plan to the board and to get his new contract signed up. And then a couple of hours after our show, it was announced that he's stood down. He doesn't want to do it anymore, which I found was a bit. Yeah, I think it might be a wise move. I didn't see him improving, but it kind of felt weird that he had gone to the board with like a game plan and like said, these are the guys I want to bring in with me now, and then change his mind. I don't know, but it's kind of made New South Wales into panic mode a bit because they don't really know who to go with. There was rumors about a Bellamy Ricky Stewart combo. Ricky Stewart, I think, came out today and basically said no.
Yeah, he's ruled himself out.
He wants to focus on the Raiders, which I don't think any current first grade coach would be interested in Origin because you've got another job to do. And, what happens if that time you're away with Origin, your team takes a dive, you miss the 8, and then you lose your 9 to 5 for a 3-game Origin series for a team that won't win anyway.
Pretty harsh.
Yeah. But who would you pick right now? I can't think of anyone.
I can't think of anyone that would actually do it. You've got good coaches out there, obviously, Bellamy's, Cleary, but none of these guys are going to take it. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just a bit worrying as somebody that goes for New South Wales. What's out there after Fittler? I know I was saying it could be a blessing in disguise, Fittler standing down, but now who do we go to?
Yeah, and Jacko said Laurie Daly be the New South Wales coach. That's the noise I'm hearing.
That doesn't fill me with too much confidence. And
Callum said you and me to coach them in tandem. I'd never coach New South Wales. No bar of it. Maybe New South Wales women's team I would coach because Millie's there, but that's about it. But yeah, so we don't know. I'm probably going to cheat and copy Jacko and say Laurie Daly. He seems to be the only potential option. So yeah, I'm sure we'll get some news on that during the internationals potentially. Connor Tracy from the Sharks has apparently requested a release from the club. Sounds like he wants to be a fullback, and he's not going to get that with Will Kennedy there. But the Sharks apparently have denied the request. So, what's your take on Connor Tracy and his current situation?
Well, is it going to end up being like another Ben Hunt situation, holding on to a guy that you think doesn't want to be there? I think he was actually really good this year when he moved to fullback when Kennedy was out, and I thought he was a really good fill in there, but obviously wants that fullback money. But yeah, I don't know. Had you heard any rumblings about clubs that might have been on the radar for him?
I'm sure there'll be a few out there. Dragons seem to be the one at the moment. The Dragons are the new Tigers, where whenever someone's available, everyone looks to the Dragons because, you've got a new coach coming in with fresh ideas and wanting to refresh that roster.
Raiders are looking for a fullback, aren't they?
They are. And I was going to say, the Dragons have got Sloan, who I think could be really good for them given some time. So I don't know if you'd want to bring a guy like Tracy in. But yeah, the Sharks don't want to let him go for now. I don't think it's as bad as the Ben Hunt situation because Connor Tracy's a good player, but he's not as integral to your team as the Dragons. Like the Dragons, it's their best player and their captain not wanting to be there. Where Connor Tracy's a guy that, is struggling sometimes to get into the team due to Will Kennedy.
Interesting why they won't let him go then.
Yeah.
Also, how much the salary cap's you taking up? Can you afford to bench him and not? Whereas in the other case, I think he was a fair chunk of the salary cap as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. Connor Tracy won't be taking up huge chunks of money.
Yeah, I think, he won't be taking that much, but yeah. And then the last bit before we get into some nitty-gritties and internationals, Dirty Dallin switched his allegiance from the Kiwis to Tonga, but he's going to miss the England tour this year due to getting a touch-up done on his knee. Disappointing as a Kiwis fan. He was our captain at one point, but I don't actually mind it. It doesn't hurt as much as when Whenua Blake and Tom Malolo did it because Dallin's been fantastic, don't get me wrong, but wingers is not really a section of the team that the Kiwis are, struggling with. We had two Kiwis be the wingers of the NRL. You still got Mulitalo, who I was proclaiming to be like the next big thing in my predictions at the start of the year. But, you've still got Jermaine Asako and Mulitalo. There's a few other players. Sucks to see him go, but I do like seeing the internationals get a bit more star power in the Pacific teams. So seeing a guy like him go there, when he's fit, you could potentially have like him and, you got Fusatua. I don't know if I've sent you the bloody team list. I don't know.
Sione Katoa would be Sione Katoa as another one, isn't he?
Yeah. I'm looking at their team now. Fusatua didn't make it, but you got heaps of players. They got Daniel Tupou. You could have Dallin and Daniel Tupou on your wings. So well, congrats to him there, and hopefully it doesn't come back to bite us at some point when we have to face Tonga. But he wanted to represent his grandmother, I believe, and his brother has played for Tonga as well. So, congrats. Someone said he's committed treason. Yeah, it is what it is. As long as he's still in the Warriors, I don't really care, to be honest. But we'll move on. I know Jay said commit to one country and stick to it. Yeah, I agree with that. He's moved. But I don't mind if you've moved as long as you don't try to move back. If Tonga's starts going down and he goes, I want to be a Kiwi again because Tonga's rubbish. I wouldn't want to see that. No, I haven't given up on internationals, Paul. It's just international haven't started yet. And we've got more than enough players. So I don't know. What do you reckon? I'm digging myself a hole here, Richie. What do you reckon?
That's just league international eligibility for you, though. Players always sort of picking and choosing and hopping different sides of the fence. Look at the Hammer playing for Samoa. Now he's been selected for Australia, so he's Australian this year. So it is a...
Well, they had Tyson Frizzell as well. They mentioned he's played for 3 nations. He played for Australia, Wales, and now he's playing for Tonga.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
It's a funny one, but at the end of the day, I think if players like Dallin want to go to represent their heritage, I think the Pacific Island nations are benefiting from that kind of thing. And we've seen the strength of them the past few years. So from that sense, it's a good thing.
Yeah, and like Ruth said, until they tighten the rules, it's going to keep happening. The rules are sus, and then the origin, I think Nicholas has mentioned as well. That's the biggest problem. That's the Pacific Nations loophole. You're going to get a lot of guys that are born and bred in New Zealand that will declare for Samoa and Tonga, which is great. But if they're using that as a way to get into Origin, that's mainly for the young players. It's not something Dallin or Adam could do. Because they've played for New Zealand already, so they can't play for Origin. But it's always going to be a mess.
That's one thing Adam said, I believe, is that one of his regrets is representing NZ. I think he only played 1 or 2 games, didn't he? And now he can't play Origin.
Yeah. But then you have the other side where Dylan Walker regrets playing for Australia because he would prefer to be a Kiwi. But he's now not allowed to play for the Kiwis because he played like 2 or 3 games back in the day. I think he played a lot more, but he played for Australia back in the day.
Did you hear about Michael Maguire wanting Wade Egan to be the next Nathan Feen?
Yeah, well, I think I was talking, I don't know if it was on here or somewhere else. He technically has been here long enough to be a New Zealand citizen and play for New Zealand. But unfortunately, because of COVID, he wasn't actually living here. Yeah. So I don't know how that muddles it. He's been here long enough, but he spent most of that time living in Australia. So
his form's been pretty damn good, where maybe he wants to hang in there and see if he picks up a Origin jersey one day.
I think if he keeps going the way he is, he could definitely be in a shot with that ragtag team of New South Wales. I would have put him in there instead of Reece Robson and the like this year.
Reece Robson was good though.
Yeah, but Paul's giving us shit. So before we move on to the internationals, I just got 2 more bits. So we talked about Angus Crichton getting offered a deal with Rugby Australia. Apparently, they've now pulled that deal. I think due to the current situation, everyone's looking at them at the moment, so they're trying to be a bit more wiser with their decisions. So it looks like the Roosters are stuck with him. And then the Warriors have promoted Slade Griffin from New South Wales Cup coach to assistant coach in first grade, and replacing him in this New South Wales Cup coach is David Tangatatoa, who's had coaching roles with the Panthers, Cowboys, Bulldogs, and Tonga. And he used to be a front rower, so you already know he's going to be one of the best coaches we have. So what's your take on Crichton, Griffin, and Toa? Bang, 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 since Paul's rushing us along.
We'll start with the Warriors coaching situation. Slade Griffin being promoted is a good one. I think he's done a good job where he is, and probably worthy of a promotion into the top side. So that's good. And yeah, Crichton, I kind of thought he would end up in Rugby Australia with the. I thought they might throw a nice fat check at him and he'd end up going, but yeah. He gets to stay in the NRL, so
it sounded like he was really keen to go too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But good for us league fans, though. Hopefully, he can find his form again.
Yeah. So before we get into signings, we've had some Pacific Championship squads named. So I gave Paul some lovely pictures that he will bring up for us. We'll run down. the team. So the Tongan squad, which is going to the UK. We had Latu Fainu, Adam Whenua Blake, Moeke Fotuaku. You should read these instead of me, mate.
Yeah, except it's really small on my screen.
Yeah. Tyson Frizzell, Savili Havili, Will Hopewadi, Conrad Harrell, Isaiah Katoa, Elise Katoa, Felice Kafusi, Keon Kolamatangi, Toluta Kola, Lola Hia, Hamoli Alakuatu, Will Penasini, Hamisili, Moses Sui, Tavita Totola, Dion Tiamapu, Stafford Toa, Daniel Tupou, and Sua Wong.
Do you want me to do Samoan? I've pulled it up on my phone.
Yes, do the Samoan one when you do it. But what's your take on the Tongan squad? I think it looks like a good squad.
It's a good squad.
A few guys that are out with injuries.
Yeah, no, very strong. I think there's a good enough squad there to give England a good shake. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that series. I'm hoping Tonga can get up.
Yeah, and next slide, Paul. Let's see which squad we're. Samoa, thank goodness. Richard, you want to do this one?
Yeah. So we have Jesse Arthurs, Dejan Asi, Gordon Chan Kum Tong, Stephen Crichton, Sua Falongo, Royce Hunt, Luciano Leilua, Connolly Lemuelu, Spencer Lenu, Helam Luki, Greg Maju, Justin Matamua, Terrell May, Kau Oluapu, Keenan Palacia, Junior Bolo, Isaac Tango, Murray Taulangi, Young Tonomopea, Brian To'o, and Stefano Utoikamanu.
And another strong side. I'm actually really impressed with that. I know there was talk from the coach from Samoa said that he's looking forward to potentially luring Roger Tuivasa-Sheck into that squad. Then you think you've got like Jerome Luai. If he didn't get injured, he'd be in there too. So yeah, stacked team.
Yes,
definitely going to be a threat in the Pacific Championship. Next slide, Paul. Australia. Oh, I might be able to do this one. So we've got Josh Adokar, Pat Carrigan, Dale Cherry Evans, Nathan Cleary, who has been scratched and replaced with Nico Hines. That's an update today.
Yep.
Selwyn Cobbo, Lindsay Collins, Ruben Cotter, Big Tino, Thomas Fledgler, Harry Grant, Payne Haas, Valentine Holmes, Ben Hunt, Liam Martin, Cameron Munster, Cameron Murray, Katoni Staggs, The Hammer, James Tedesco, Jake Travojevic, and Isaiah Yeo. So no room, I know you're going to talk about it later, but no room for some of those elusive fullbacks that were playing this year. Went with Grandpa Tedesco instead.
Brad says, I'll do these ones, and then goes big
Tino.
And
I could never get
the two hardest ones there. He dodges.
Yeah. They have nicknames for a specific reason, Paul. But yeah, what's your take on that Australian team?
Yeah, I'll reserve a little bit of my thoughts for the question time, but yeah, it's quite strong. It's very strong. Obviously, all Australian sides that are picked are strong. Cleary, it's a shame for Cleary, but you know he was playing injured in that grand final, and Hines is no slouch. So I guess maybe they'll slot Cherry Evans in and have Hines there as well. I don't know how they're going to run with that, but yeah, couple of changes I would make, but we'll save that for question time.
Yeah, and then the last one, New Zealand. So we got Nelson Asafa Solomona, Dylan Brown, Faa Manu Brown, James Fisher Harris, Kieran Foran, Widamu Greg, Jerome Hughes, Jermaine Osako, Kino Kinney, Moses Leota, Danny Levi, Joseph Manu, Ronaldo Mulatalo, Griffin Neem, Chance Nicol Kluxta, Britton Nakora, Isaiah Papali'i, Joseph Tapani, Leo Thompson, Matthew Tomoko, and Nafamu White. It's not a bad team. A lot of outs, as we said, due to injuries and people like Sean missing out. I think the halves, looking at that, would you be putting, it would be Foran and Brown. Oh no,
Well,
sorry, Hughes is there too. Sorry, it'll be Hughes
Jerome
and Brown.
Hughes and Brown. I think where we're suffering is the hooker position.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
we lost both our good hookers.
yeah. This side would be looking so much better if we had Jeremy Marshall King and Brandon Smith there.
Yeah,
But other than that, it's strong. I'm happy for Matt Timoko getting a look in. His form's been really good this year, but yeah, it's just a shame our hook. We're looking a bit weak at hooker.
thankfully we got two of the best props running around. So
Well, we do. Do we ever? The forward pack's fantastic. Not just the props, but then they'll probably play Tapane at 13 and Nakora, Papali'i. The second row is very strong as well.
yeah, and I assume it's going to probably be Danny Levi starting,
You would think, yeah.
which he's not bad.
Yeah, and Manu Brown is another option.
Yeah. But yeah, be interesting. It'll be interesting what they do with Chance. Because
Watermoo Greg's another good one too.
Yeah. So
he's had some impact this year. So if he comes off the bench,
do you keep Manu in centres and Chance at fullback, or do you?
I would.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good reward for Chance's form this year, and our centres would look pretty good with Manu out in the centres. Oh yeah, that's a strong combination. We all know what Joey Manu brings from when he plays fullback. Strong running game, but I think he plays centre week in and week out.
Yeah.
Chance is going to bring that too, and Chance is obviously a very safe option. Does a lot of work, and his playmaking this year out the back of shape was really good as well. He set up a number of tries on our right edge, so I think maybe he's got more of a pass in him than Manu. So yeah.
So that's the internationals. We'll obviously talk a bit more about that when we get closer to the Pacific Championship, but we'll go into signings. We only got 3. Four technically. Dean Hawkins and Michael Cheekham have both extended with the Rabbitohs for a further year, so they'll be there for 2024. And then the Catalan Dragons have signed Tarek Sims on a 2-year deal, and they've also signed Jaden Nikarima. I don't know the length on that deal, but I think Hawkins and Cheekham was a guy I was kind of keeping an eye on for the Warriors.
Yep.
If he didn't get picked up. And Sims, I know he said he was interested in staying with the Storm, and then they offered him a deal and he said no and went to France. So
yeah, must have got a good offer there. But it's good pickups for the Catalan Dragons, though.
Yeah, and Jaden was always, publicized as the better of the Nikarima brothers, but just made some poor choices off the field, which kind of derailed him. But yeah, I'm sure he'll kill it up in France.
Yeah.
And then injuries, we only really had 1. 2 technically now because of Cleary. But Jerome Luai and Nathan Cleary both hurt themselves in the grand final. Luai re-injured his shoulder, and they say he's going to require surgery, which is obviously seeing him miss playing for Samoa in the Pacific Championship. But they think he might not even be ready for round 1 next year. And then Cleary, they haven't given a lead time. I'm sure he'll be back in no time. But yeah, he bumped his knee a little bit. I think it was like 10 minutes into that grand final. He buggered his knee, which makes what happened later that much more impressive. But yeah, they reckon he'll be there for round 1. And then Naughty Boy Corner, we had nothing. I think Payne Haas got a $1,000 fine for something in the grand final, but no suspensions. So that's it. We still did all right time, Paul. New section, we may as well get into the grand finals. We're doing both instead of just saying the score of the NRLW. So we'll start with them. The Knights getting their second win on their second grand final in a row, beating the Titans 24-18, Richie.
Yeah. And it was 5 tries to 3 for the Knights. Jasmine Strange, Sheridan Gallagher, Shanice Parker, and then Tamika Upton grabbing 2 to take the game away at the end. For the Titans, hat-trick to Jamie Chapman.
Yeah, Knights were taken to the limit here. I didn't think they did much wrong. But when given a sniff, old Dally M winner Upton just took control and took over the match. I think they have a very big chance of going for a three-peat of their own in 2024. Your take on the Knights?
Yeah, I thought almost like the men's grand final. The Knights showed their championship caliber when they were down. And the game's best player this year, Tamika Upton, stood up to be counted when the chips were down, showing why she's one of the most devastating attackers in the comp.
Yeah, and your take on the Titans?
They look prime for Gold Coast's first ever premiership after two back-to-back tries either side of halftime, completing Jamie Chapman's hat-trick in the game. They just couldn't manage to hold off the fast-finishing Knights, and unfortunately somebody has to lose, and it ended in heartbreak. Yeah,
and I see Jacko said the NRLW was a good game, but hard to get excited about the women's game until Warriors return. Yeah, the Warriors, I think, have officially confirmed they've lodged an application to come back. So I think they're hoping for 2025 returning, which, it'll be great to see. But I thought this year's NRLW was fantastic, and the Titans have been a great story. A bit like the Knights. The Knights won the grand final last year. The year before, they were Wooden Spoon. Titans, they were the Wooden Spoon last year. Almost looked like they were going to get this one with what was quite a decent start. It was like the first 60 minutes of this game, they were playing really well. Yeah. But they were let down by their errors, which opened the door for the Knights. But a great season, I think, for the Titans. And they have a shot of building something from this season next year. They could become real contenders. But in hindsight, it's very similar to what we're going to say about the men's game. It was almost a very, very similar type approach. But your player that stood out?
You had to go to Tamika. Like I said, when the chips were down, she stood up and 2 tries, bang, bang, wrestled the ascendancy back in the Knights' favour after the Titans were looking good.
Yeah, I went with her too. She is like the best player running around out there. She's just always dangerous. Thoroughly deserved. But we'll move on to the big game that everyone's been waiting for. Panthers completing the three-peat, Richie, defeating the Broncos 26-24.
Yeah, and amazing game. Edge of the seat the whole time. But it was 4 tries apiece in the end for the Panthers. Mitch Kenny, Moses Leota, Stephen Crichton, and Nathan Cleary, Mr. Clive Churchill winner, grabbed the winner. For the Broncos, Thomas Flegler, Ezra Mam with a quick-fire hat-trick in the space of 10 minutes. Don't know if you ever see that repeated in the grand final, so what an effort from him.
It ended up being that penalty goal being the difference from a Broncos era. That was the difference, but this Panthers team's just too good. They're down 24-8 with 20 to go. It was almost the time for me looking at the clock going, I might just turn it off and go to bed. I got work really early in the morning. And then I think it was a Cleary 40-20, and I was like, oh, hold on. I may as well see what's happening here. And then it just clicked. But it really looked like they were going to go down in an embarrassing fashion after how great they've been. And then, they never panicked, which I thought was a true test of their confidence. Cleary stepped up with probably one of the best 20 minutes we'll ever see in a grand final after a great 10 minutes from Ezra Mam, as he said. Helped by big games from the big boppers up front. Fisher Harris and Leota, and then Spencer coming off the bench. I thought they were just monsters. Fantastic performance. And I think 4 championships in a row is a real big possibility with this team. Crichton, I think it was good to see Crichton go out his last potential grand final ever.
He was really good, too. He was really good.
Your take on the Panthers?
I thought they showed crazy ball control. I think it was by the end of the game, it was 97% completion rate. In a grand final, it's crazy.
They made one error.
Yeah, one error. One error, and it was kind of like an offload that just sort of went, a bit wrong. But other than that, their ball control was amazing. Early on, they didn't do too much with the ball, and their last tackle options weren't quite accurate. And they only had one fortuitous try to show for their dominance off the short dropout to Mitch Kenny. Then obviously the Broncos hit their purple patch where they turned it on and took a really big lead, which probably should have been a winning lead, but as only this team can do, they didn't panic and applied pressure, which snowballed, and they ended up engineering the biggest ever grand final comeback to seal the three-peat. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. They're a modern-day juggernaut of a team. I think you got to call them best of the NRL era.
Yeah, and I think we already said that last week, that if they won this week, you'd have to put them there. They it's probably more for Paul's ears. They remind me at the moment of the old school All Blacks team, where teams would really give it to the All Blacks, and then the All Blacks in the final 20 minutes, they just did what they did, and they eventually just got the job done, even if it didn't look that way at the start. It's kind of like that. They just always seem to be in control, even if it doesn't look it. Something's happening there. And yeah, Jacko said Fisher, Harrison, Leota on the field. The Panthers scored 26. Well, one or both of them off. Broncos scored 24. Yeah, and I might be right. Props are the most important players. That's 100%.
Don't say that to him, Jacko.
There's no way that Nathan Cleary did what he did out there if he had, say, the Tigers front row.
Yeah.
Right? It's, as good as he is, if you don't have those big boppers doing that hard work, it just makes his job so much harder. And they were just, to be credit to Broncos as well, Payne Haas, Flegler were giving as good as they got.
That's what makes it even crazier. How well Leota and Fisher Harris those guys went against a forward pack like the Broncos forward pack. That's not a bad forward pack they're ending up against. It's probably one of the best packs in the game.
Yeah. And speaking of, what was your thoughts on the Bronx?
You have to feel for I don't feel for them because I don't really like them that much, but somebody's got to feel for them. They made plenty of errors early. Drop balls and Selwyn Cobbo tackling the was it Taruva when he hadn't even caught the ball?
Yeah, it's his habit. He did that against the Warriors too.
Yeah, but that's the Broncos. They make errors given the flair they play with and the amount of shots they tend to fire at teams. But then they click, which they did. And Ezra Mam almost had Clive Churchill locked up if the Broncos go on and win that game, scoring a hat-trick in 10 minutes. I think in the end, the Panthers' ball control fatigued the Broncos enough that they couldn't hold on when the Panthers got momentum chasing the game.
Yeah, heartbreaking loss for the Broncos. They looked like they were home and host. 20 minutes ago, it was over. But they did make too many errors. I said Panthers made one error. Broncos made 11. So 11-1. And that is always a risk of that style they play, I think.
Yeah.
When you're playing, a few offloads trying to get that second phase, if it doesn't stick, you're in trouble. And you just got to keep pushing. Because once you're playing that style, you can't really go back to a more structured style. You kind of set in your path. Big efforts from Ezra Mam and Payne Haas, but less than style. I think Jacko mentioned it a bit earlier. Reynolds and Walsh just had a night to forget. I think all those Rabbits fans were sitting there going, see, this is why we let Reynolds go. He really dropped the ball on them. He was, captain, the experienced guy in there, and he was making some schoolboy errors like those goal line dropouts, one leading to a fortuitous try for the Panthers, one going out on the full, and things like that. And yeah, I don't know. And then Walsh was gun shy, which if you saw all the footage of him before the game started, he looked like the head rooster out there. But when the game started, he just disappeared. And then he had a few breaks, give him credit. There was a few times where he looked dangerous, but just they, unfortunately for them, when they needed them most, their stars let them down. And it's that cliche, you got to lose one to win one. So they could still be a big threat in 2024. The game, though, on both sides, it was unbelievably fast. Like I think I said to you and Ruin Hammer, if we had bet the Broncos and got into that game, I think we would have been in trouble with the pace it was. It was just hectic.
I feel like that too.
But disappointing for Broncos and their fans, I'm sure. But it's something they'll learn from. But yeah, fantastic grand final, which I think capped off what's been a pretty good NRL season. Your player to stand out?
I went for Moses Leota. We've already talked about, and Jacko mentioned it, how well their middles went. I thought Leota was.
You went with a prop.
Wow. I couldn't ignore him, mate. He put Pat Carrigan on his ass. Nobody does that. He ran straight through him. And not only that, later in the game, Cleary makes the break. Who's steaming up the middle? A front rower to score a grand final try. They're just so big and
as a front row. You run as fast as you can to get that ball if you're going to be able to.
Yeah, true. But they're just so big and intimidating, and they probably get overlooked when it comes to these Dally M Team of the Years. It's always someone like Haas. But as a combination, Leota and Fisher Harris, it's a crazy propping duo. And I thought Leota was pretty much a 10 out of 10 prop performance.
I feel dirty. You've picked him, and I've gone with Nathan Cleary. I've picked a halfback. I had to give it to Nathan. That was, like I said, 10 minutes into the game, he injured his knee, and it didn't look great. And then, he's just we just talked about, Walsh and Reynolds not being there for the big moments, and Cleary, that's kind of his deal. He's just cool as ice. When you need a clutch play, he delivers. It's crazy how much talent he's got. And thoroughly deserved Churchill.
Oh, 100%. He wasn't even perfect either. In that period where Walsh made that break, who did he run through? Cleary. But it's when the championship minutes came, the last 20. Yeah. He shone the brightest easily.
He won them that game.
Without Luai, without who went off?
It was the
Luai.
It was the hooker.
Isaiah Yeo went off.
Isaiah Yeo went off.
Scott Sorensen went off. They had 3 or 4 of their big game players went off, and it was pretty much just him still there throwing punches.
Before moving on, because I see we've got plenty of time. Before moving on,
you said Hoppy got through punches. I mean, geez, you can't come around with even NRLs that love to throw punches.
Jerome Luai, he's coming up to contract negotiation. Do you think this hurts him? Where the Panthers see that he went off injured and they were, under the pump when he was out there, and then he went off and they managed to do the biggest comeback. Do you go, we don't need to give Luai money. We can let him go. We don't need him.
No, I don't think it hurts him any. I think his combination with Cleary is a massive part of this team. I think he's obviously playing injured and went off, and it just probably...
Defending your Samoan brother, I see how it is.
Putting Cogger on just gave the Broncos probably a different look that they probably didn't watch tape on. They were probably preparing themselves for Cleary and Luai, and instead they got a different look. And I thought Cogger actually did really well when he came on and played his role perfectly to free up Cleary. But I don't, to answer your question, I don't think it hurts Luai's chances at all.
I think he's gone, man. He's a bulldog. You watch. They don't need him. We're going to have the new combination of Cleary and Schneider. So that is us on the NRL. So we can go into our picks. Our last picture of picks for the year. We got our little medals, Richie. So Richie, well done. By being a coward and not picking the Broncos, you secured the championship by doing the whole let's pick what Brad picks to keep my lead. We all got the game right. We all picked Panthers. I didn't want to overload the picture with stars, so it was the 1 week we don't do stars. But Richie, once again, you're back to back winning the finals tipping. I was sick. You got 8 out of 9. You only got one game wrong. I was 7 out of 9. Only being bold in that first round cost me here. And then Simon was the boldest of us all, going for some big upsets. He got 4 out of 9. So you get your little gold medal. I got a silver, and Simon got a bronze. And yeah, Paul said Richie comes good at the money end of the season. He does. When there's only a few games left, it seems to be a bit easier for him.
It is.
That's exactly what it is. Congrats on that. So we may as well move into questions. Did we have any questions from the audience, Paul, that we didn't already answer?
Well, just the one. I think we think Richie and I probably know what the answer to this one is. But
yes,
Callum asks Brad, if you had to dump your girlfriend and marry an NRLW player, who would it be?
Brad was telling me it's actually Millie Haufunga now.
Yeah, Millie,
isn't it? Millie Haufunga.
No, it's Millie Boyle. Millie Boyle. I'd marry her tomorrow. I love you, Millie. It'd be very embarrassing if you ever watch this show and I happen to bump into you once. It'd be very embarrassing. But no, she's tremendous. There's a lot of them in there.
The restraining order is being processed. I'm
not allowed to go to Sydney.
So Jack, what's happening with Savage at Raiders? He was meant to be the next big thing out there.
Good question. He was pretty much not cited this year.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with him. You know, they moved him ahead of Chance, moved Chance to reserve grade. Then Chance jumped ship, came home. Xavier was meant to be the next big thing and just hasn't really hit stride. It could be a case of the second year syndrome, maybe. And we'll see him come back in.
He had some injuries
as well.
He's still very young, so yeah,
he's good talent, but
next year we'll tell a story.
Yeah, I'll put it down to second year syndrome. A lot of those young guys kind of fall away in the second year. So
next year's his year.
Next year is his year.
That's it from the live chat, guys.
Cool. All right. We'll go with your one first.
Okay. So, yeah, I was going to talk some international footy with you. And in particular, the Aussie team, I thought there was a couple of players who were in good form. Kalen Ponga, Dally M, Reece Walsh, probably the most talked about player this year. No room for either of them in the squad. Or Dylan Edwards for that matter, and they've gone with the tried and true James Tedesco. What would you have done there, Brad? Would you have continued with James Tedesco, or would you have found room in the squad for some of those form players instead?
I wouldn't even have Tedesco in the New South Wales team. I think he's fallen so far off the cliff. It's not funny. He's not even the best fullback in New South Wales, let alone Australia.
Yeah.
You know, I would comfortably have Edwards can play New South Wales, can't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have Edwards, Turbo, Latrell all over Tedesco in New South Wales. And Australia, right now, it would probably be Edwards or Walsh for me. I would be making the fullback for Australia. Ponga, I've got to stick with that routine of the Dally M medalist doesn't make the Australian team, just like the World Cup. So Ponga doesn't make it for me. But yeah, Walsh or Edwards, I would have had there in a heartbeat. I don't know. I know Tedesco's the captain, but it's kind of like you got your broken down horse you've had forever that you don't want to get rid of, but you just want to keep it around the farm because it makes you feel good. That's kind of how I feel it is with Teddy. Like, he's a good player. You know, he's still a hell of a better player than I could ever dream of being. So I'm not trying to say, how shit he is, but in comparison to what's there.
Try him as a prop compared to you, Brad. I mean, let's just let's go like for like rather than.
Yeah, put him in front row. I'd smash him. I'm sure but
But
yeah, and
as part of this, how are you thinking of this tour? Is this a tour, or are these games at the end of the season? Are they games that are you're just picking your best team and trying to win it, or are you now actually thinking, okay, next Rugby World Cup or next Rugby League World Cup, anyone who's not going to make it to there should be ditched, and we should start organising and start developing for that. How are you approaching these games? Just the games themselves, or should you be looking further ahead?
I think Australia are in a position where if they're picking their best team, it's almost developing for the future as well. I almost feel like putting Ponga or Walsh or even Edwards at fullback would be better options.
Sorry, I just got a message from my girlfriend who was watching and is not happy that I said I'd marry Millie. So apologies. She never watches. It's movie's law.
Change topic.
I think you could do a bit of both. I think by having Dylan Edwards or Walsh there, you're building for like the next World Cup, but you're also putting yourself in a great position to win now as well.
Who would you rather have if you're a Kiwis supporter? Who don't you want to see running at you? Probably Reece Walsh.
Yeah, but
if you're a Kiwi supporter, who do you want to be running at?
Didn't really hurt the Broncos for much of the year.
Apart from when it mattered.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True.
But yeah, they've got such a rich form of riches there. They can kind of pick 6 or 7 different guys. Some of them are going to miss out, but yeah, I think Teddy, he's had a great career, but I think he's just falling behind. But you watch, he'll come out and be the best fullback in the comp in this championship and make us look silly. But my question for you, after his effort in the grand final, where would you rank Nathan Cleary in all-time halfbacks?
He's climbing. He's certainly climbing. You look at a lot of the great ones, Andrew Johns, Cooper. Wow, Cooper Cronk has had a few back-to-back. I think did he go back-to-back with Storm and then win one with the Roosters? I'm not sure if he got a three-peat in different clubs. I know he's at least gone back-to-back. He won one at the Storm and then won one at the Roosters back-to-back. But a lot of these other legends, Andrew Johns hasn't done what Nathan Cleary has done at NRL level. Thurston, none of them have a three-peat. Certainly not by the age of 25. They didn't have it by the end of their career. The only thing that they have that Nathan doesn't have is that rep level dominance.
That origin.
Doing it at origin level.
Because he's won World Cups now. So
he's won a World Cup. But NRL level, at the age of 25, is what Nathan's done is almost untouched. 2 Clive Churchills. The game on the weekend was probably just the icing on the cake where he pretty much threw the team on his back and won the game and scored the game-winning try. So certainly climbing. Yeah. I think maybe I'd still throw Joey up there and maybe Thurston, but then I think maybe Cleary coming in just behind that and obviously still with plenty of career left in him to change that conversation.
Yeah, I think he's definitely on track to be number 1 by the time he hangs the boots up.
Definitely.
But yeah, personally, for me, it's halfback's not my level of expertise, which is why I asked this to you. But Joey, Thurston, and the likes, I'd still have above him just at the moment. But yeah, I think if they go to 4 in a row. Or even if they don't go 4 in a row, but they make the grand final next year. So he's had like 5 years in the grand final. That's a hell of a thing. Yeah, he just needs that. He needs to jump ship and become a Queenslander so he can win some Origins and then get that up as well, and then he'd be fine. But that was it for the questions. So I know Jacko likes to jump off before Super League, but we're doing that now. It's not very long, Jacko, and then we'll talk about what we're doing next week. So we're down to 4 teams, Richie. After one-sided matches in the eliminations. Hull KR defeated Lee 20-6, and St Helens defeated Warrington 16-8, which means that the semi-finals coming up is Catalans versus St Helens and Wigan versus Hull KR. I'm thinking Catalans Wigan final.
Yeah, and I was sort of, from what I was thinking, I'm 1 for 2 after the weekend just gone. I was definitely thinking St Helens, but I thought Lee might get up. But yeah, I tend to agree with you.
But yeah, so narrowing down. But yeah, should be a good find. We were very confident going into the Challenge Cup, and we were completely wrong. So we might be surprised, but it kind of feels like it's going to be a bit like the NRL teams 1 and 2 meeting in the grand final. So and that's it for Super League. So I know Jacko just said he'd make a cuppa, but I think it may be too late. So next week's show, we got no games to review, Richie.
Yep.
So what that means
is... You mean we'll only spend 2 hours on the news?
We're going to spend a lot of time. There's a lot of work for you next week, Paul. So I expect you to be here. It's our annual awards show that we do. So we'll still discuss any news that happens during the week. The news at this time of year does seem to die down a little bit, but maybe with the internationals there might be a bit more. But so we'll start off the show going over already mentioned, and I think I sent you guys both a message saying I was working on the slides this week for our prediction show and doing the big ticks or crosses on what we got right. And spoilers, we got one prediction that we made right. we botched everything. So that's going to be really fun discussing how way off we were, which is a bit of a warm up because I know coming up at some point we're going on Ruin Hammer to recap the predictions we made on their show, and I think it's going to be a bit of a kicking there too.
More of the same.
And Jacko mentioned that RTS got done for DUI. That's we were talking before we went on air about what a bad influence rugby union people are, and the sooner Roger comes back into the Warriors family, he will be on better behaviour.
Cleans his sins.
Look, exactly. That white powder is just plaster. Okay, it's nothing else.
That's not a Warriors thing, Paul.
It's the Hawke's Bay Rugby Union team.
Oh, true. Yeah, they like it too. So yeah, we'll go over the predictions.
On it, plaster.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll do our preseason predictions, go over what we did, and then we'll stop, do the questions like we normally do, and then go into our awards. So the awards are like Player of the Year, Try of the Year, Best Haircut, Worst Haircut. Same ones if you watched last year, same kind of thing. Richard, thankfully, has already given me his picks for the awards. So I'll be spending the next few days working on those slides. So we have them all ready. But should be a fun night. Might be a bit shorter for Paul. So he might be happy, but a lot of work.
If people want to, perhaps we can have a sort of a people's choice one where you give us pop over to Brad. What's your Facebook page again?
Ingers League Wrap Up.
So go pop over to Ingers League Wrap Up and drop Brad a message on your favourite moment of the season or your best Mad Monday story that you've heard from what's happened in the last sort of week or two. And I'm sure Brad will include some of those that he gets through there as well.
Yeah. But yeah, it should be a night, good night. And anything else you guys want to add before I let you go?
It's an early night for us, isn't it?
It is.
It's only 9:08.
I know.
What are we going to do with ourselves?
Shut up, Richie. Okay, wrap it up. Come on, let's go. Big Stu, place to go.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in tonight and joining us on the Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. For your weekly update on rugby league, tune into our show next week at 8 p.m. here on Facebook or on YouTube. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. Thanks again for joining me, Richie. And see, Jacko said early night break and make up with girlfriend. Yeah, there'll be a phone call, I'm sure. Yes. Thank you both for joining me tonight, and good night, everyone.
Cheers.
Oh yeah, sorry. If anyone wants to sponsor us for flowers, so Brad can have dinner tomorrow, that would be much appreciated.
How much does it cost to send flowers